Have you ever thought you'd watch a History Channel where someone would say, let's compare Jonathan Swift to Cartman's mom? Today we're talking about South Park. Yeah, the cartoon with cardboard cutout kids, fart jokes, and somehow the sharpest history lessons you didn't know you were getting. Because here's the thing, people dismiss South Park as juvenile, but basically carrying a 2,000-year-old tradition. Aristophanes roasted politicians in ancient Athens. Jonathan Swift suggested eating Irish babies. Mark Twain called out American hypocrisy. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they had Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Pooh, and yet they all had the same job, making society uncomfortable enough to laugh and then realize you're the butt of the joke. In ancient Greece, Aristophanes literally staged plays where politicians were mocked as horny idiots. The Athenians laughed, but they also got the point. Their democracy was a mess. Jump to 1729. Jonathan Swift publishes a modest proposal. He writes completely deadpan, the solution to Irish poverty is eating Irish babies. Not because he thought toddlers were delicious, but because his society treated the poor as less than human. And then flash forward 1997, South Park debuts on Comedy Central with a talking piece of feces, wishing you a Merry Christmas. Now I know what you're thinking. Swift had biting irony. Aristophanes had wordplay. South Park had, well, poop and a Santa hat. But it's the same strategy. Make the joke that you can't ignore, with the truth hiding underneath it. There's an episode of South Park in season 8 where they talk about immigrants. Immigrants from the future come back to the present desperate for jobs. The townspeople scream, they took our jobs, which became the meme before memes. Historically, it's the same reaction. Every immigrant wave that comes into America, from the Irish in the 1840s to the Italians in the 1900s to the Mexicans and Spanish Central Americans of today. Same thing. They're here to take our jobs. South Park boiled centuries of xenophobia into one ridiculous chant. And yeah, it still applies today. Trapper Keeper, episode from season 4. The episode parodied the 2000 U.S. presidential election and the Florida recount. Yes, hanging chads again. But with Cartman's school supplies turning into the Terminator. If Aristophanes were alive, he wouldn't write a think piece in the Atlantic. He would just write about a stapler running for office and winning. And South Park did exactly that. In season 10, they had an episode called Cartoon Wars. These episodes are about censorship, specifically whether you could show Muhammad in a cartoon. Comedy Central censored it. South Park mocked the censorship itself. That goes back to political cartoons being banned in the 18th and 19th century in Europe. Napoleon hated being drawn as short. Czars threw cartoonists in jail. South Park is part of the same fight. Does free speech survive when everyone's offended? One of South Park's smartest tricks is inversion. The kids, Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and yes, even Kenny, are supposed to be dumb little kids, but half the time, they're the only sane voices in the whole town. The adults, complete and utter morons. That's no accident. Historically, fools and jesters could say things no one else could. Shakespeare's fools got away with mocking kings. Court jesters could tell the truth wrapped in a joke. South Park basically made that an entire show's premise. Here's the fun part. Nobody agrees on South Park's politics. Conservatives love it because it dunks on political correctness. Liberals love it because it dunks on conservatives. Libertarians adopted it because it dunks on everyone. But maybe that's the point. Historically, satire has always been a slippery slope. Aristophanes wasn't a Republican or a Democrat. He wasn't just roasting whoever screwed up that week. He roasted the whole system of Athens. Twain wasn't left or right. He was just calling America out on its hypocrisy. South Park's philosophy seems to be, if you're in power, you are fair game. Which honestly is the older tradition in satire itself. South Park has always thrived on pointing out hypocrisy, no matter which side of the spectrum you're on. Okay? And recently, they decided to pick on or go after Charlie Kirk. If you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, well, watch TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, anything. He is a conservative mediator type person. He goes to college campuses and around the world and he debates people. Charlie Kirk is somebody who is famous for basically his mannerisms, the way he talks, the way he acts, the way he does things. And Trey Parker and Matt Stone decided, hey, let's write a Charlie Kirk episode. They did. And they gave Charlie Kirk's persona to Cartman. Cartman was spectacular in this episode. The irony of all this is, of course, Charlie Kirk, at first everyone thought Charlie Kirk was going to be offended, but Charlie Kirk loved it, okay? And Charlie Kirk loved it because he understood the point, and he understands the point of South Park. When Cartman decides to become a master debater, he stays up all night, he gets sponsored by protein shakes, he goes to places and talks to people, normally kids his own age, and he starts quoting the Bible verses that Charlie Kirk uses, Jeremiah and others, and he drinks his water, he sets it down aggressively, he has his mic, he does all the mannerisms of Charlie Kirk. And again, satire. What we struggle with in America today, I think, and even in the world, is some of us have lost touch with what satire is, why it's okay. We get offended by satire. Aristophanes, Mark Twain, Jonathan Swift, they all use satire, and not everyone loved it. I mean, some of these guys, until later on, after they were dead, that's when people really appreciated their work. And a lot of people appreciated their work because they had seen history throughout. South Park has been on for 25 years. And when they first came on, they went to Fox. Fox said, no, because they were a little too not mainstream enough. Comedy Central took a chance. They sent them on their show. They did what they needed to do. And then they started making season after season. And after, I think, the 5th season, they thought they were going to get canceled. So what they do, they made this huge movie. They said, okay, the show's going to end with a movie. The movie had everything from war with Canada to Satan to Saddam Hussein and everything in between. They had songs called Blame Canada. I believe they're both from Canada. And Canadians look different than people from Colorado. Their mouths were different, their bodies were different, their language was different, even though most of the time Canadians and Americans are very similar in everything they do. But here's the point. Trey Parker, Matt Stone, they thought it was over and they went out with a bang. But what they didn't acknowledge at first, and what Comedy Central didn't see at first, was the historical impact their show would have. Their show showed people, no pun intended, showed people that news events, current events, historical events, if we relook at them in a different aspect, with a little joke, a little satire, a little sarcasm, one, we can see how silly some of it is. And two, we can see how we've changed as a society because of it. When they did the Hanging Chad episode, they basically talked about how elections sometimes make no sense. When they did the Charlie Kirk episode, they basically made Charlie Kirk look like somebody who just like attacking college kids or younger kids. He'll debate anybody, but most of the time what he puts on air is not teenagers, but college students. When they did the episode on Muhammad, It was a big deal. Why? Because no one was allowed to draw Muhammad, and so they put him in a bear suit. The one that really got me is when they went after Scientology. Now, why is that? Well, Isaac Hayes was on the show, and Isaac Hayes was a Scientologist. And the way they put down Scientology and Tom Cruise and the whole John Travolta and everything else about Scientology, Isaac Hayes quit the show. Okay, Chef quit the show. And that was a big news story because, South Park dared to make fun of Tom Cruise's religion. They've made fun of Christianity with Jesus. They've made fun of Judaism many times. Almost every episode, Cartman calls Kyle a Jew. They make fun of Gandhi. They make fun of Muslims. They make fun of Hindus. They make fun of everybody. Okay, Mormons, Jehovah, everybody. But the only time they couldn't show the person they make fun of was the Muhammad episode. But the Scientology episode is the one that split the cast. Not in a negative way. Isaac Hayes just like, I can't do this, man. And he left. And they let him. They weren't rude. They understood. But Hollywood is big on virtue signaling and only doing what they have to do and making everyone happy. They don't care about that on South Park. They don't care if they make fun of Tom Cruise or Charlie Kirk or the president, whichever one it is. They don't care about having the devil on the screen or Saddam Hussein in hell or, all different types of things. A poo with a Christmas hat on it. Because to them, it's all about showing people the humor and the craziness of the world we live in. Because it's crazy. South Park exaggerates reality until it becomes absurd. Charlie Kirk's live version of himself in reality is pretty absurd, which means when you put the two side by side, a line between parody and politics completely disappear. Charlie Kirk is absurd online. He acts completely insane sometimes, but it works for him. When they did the Cartman version, it worked. So here's the takeaway. South Park has been running for 25 years by pointing out how unserious series people actually are. And in the world where Charlie Kirk can command a national audience while basically saying things that sound like a 12-year-old trying to win an argument in homeroom, maybe we don't even need South Park to satirize it. Reality is doing it all by itself. Behind the fart jokes, shock humor, there's not much difference between that and what Jonathan Swift, Aristophanes, and Mark Twain were doing. It's gross, it's absurd, and that's why it works. Lesson is satire is simple. You laugh, and then you realize, oh crap, they're talking about me. And then you laugh some more. So next time you dismiss South Park as just immature, remind yourself, remind whoever needs to hear it. It's basically a PhD in history with more poop jokes. The immortal wisdom of Randy Marsh. Now, if you don't know who Randy Marsh is, you might have seen him on TikTok or Facebook Reels. He basically is a guy who owns a weed store now and likes to take giant poops. Okay, he's a parent, but a bunch of different times, mostly when their little kids are playing a little league and they're traveling and there are fights breaking out among parents. And they're being hauled away by the police. And he's like, I thought this was America. I can do what I want. This is America. And Randy can do what he wants. And just like those parents, you can be absolutely stupid, but we're allowed to laugh at you. Because that's the point, y'all. When I hear people in politics, no matter which side it is, talk about things they have no idea about, I'm allowed to laugh because they're being stupid. It's not disrespectful to laugh at somebody in power if they don't know what they're talking about. Laugh at them. Leave a comment. Laugh at them. Tell them they don't know what they're talking about. Hearing somebody who's never paid for anything tell you how expensive things are, or how difficult it must be to be a real person. They've never been one. Start laughing at people. Enjoy their stupid. Enjoy their impracticality. Enjoy their messed up version of reality. Who knows? Someday that stuff might make it onto South Park. Till next time.